It doesn't matter if you're in high school or uni, these are traps that people easily fall into, these are traps that I've fallen into in the past, but nonetheless we should all strive to avoid these bad habits.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Darren and I'm currently in my second year of med school at Monash University here in Melbourne, Australia. So I've been reflecting a lot on how I've studied and how I've changed how I've studied through the years. For those of you who have been long supporters of the channel, you know that I've been very studious throughout basically my entire life, and it hasn't really let off now that I'm in med school as well. And as I looked upon how my study methods has changed and also how my results reflected that, I identified sort of three main mistakes that I made and also that I've seen people around me make as well. So today I'll be sharing those with you guys, so hopefully you can identify them in your own studies and avoid them as well. Mistake number one is studying the same way for every subject. I'll talk a bit about my own experience and then I'll go into what I recommend for you guys. So for my own experience in high school, I did actually study differently for each subject. My high school subjects were very, very diverse. I had languages, Latin, Chinese, math subjects, English subjects, and science subjects as well. But I found that reflecting back, it wasn't a purposeful decision I made. It was just something that I happened to do, and I guess I was very fortunate that I didn't use the same bland method for every single subject. But now that I'm in med school, I found that was a little harder. So reflecting upon my year one of medicine, I found that often I would study the same way for every subject, just smash out like flashcards or just try and memorize things in bulk, which wasn't really a good way to do it. I didn't really acknowledge the nuances of each subject, and I guess it was a little harder because in med the subjects are slightly more related to each other than in high school. But this year I've been trying to do things differently. Of course there is a lot of memorization. For example, like pharmacology, it is just hardcore memorization of drugs, their mode of actions. But with things like physiology, and I've been talking about spirometry a bit, which is like measuring different lung capacities, I really try and sit there and visualize the graph and think about the relationship between, say, functional residual capacity and the residual volume. So really think about relationships between things and visualizing things in my head rather than just surface level memorization. My recommendation for you guys is to critically look at your subject and think about what makes them different and what might be the best way to study for them. It's also useful to reflect on your past as well. Maybe you've tried out different strategies for different subjects and really look at what worked and what didn't work and try and incorporate that into your learning. If you really have nowhere to start, you can look at some of my videos where I go into different subjects and how I studied for them, and also there are other YouTubers out there as well. The classic mistake people make is like having really pretty notes for every single subject. Now that's not that useful, particularly for subjects like maths. You basically have a textbook there already which explains things like fine. It's much more useful doing practice questions, analyzing your mistakes, making a list of your mistakes and thinking about how to avoid them. Whereas having a set of notes is likely more useful for subjects like biology, where the textbook might be very clunky and not be explaining things in a way that you understand. But in addition to making those collated, organized notes, in biology and history subjects, it's also very useful to revise and do flashcards periodically to check whether you've retained that information. Mistake number two is not revising regularly. Regardless of what level of education you're in, the general rule of thumb is that the older you get, the busier it gets. So revising regularly wasn't a problem for me in high school. I found that there just wasn't as much information as in uni, and also the teachers push you along and give you worksheets which just help you consolidate the information without you sort of having to arrange it yourself. But once I reached med school and first year med school, I did struggle with it a bit because there's just too much content to leave to exam period if you don't revise it throughout. And also revising throughout just alleviates so much time and stress later on. So for example, in med school we have 12 weeks in a semester, and if you don't revise weeks 1, 2, 3 until that small window before the exam, it will be really hard to cover all that information because of the sheer amount of information, and also because even though you understood it really well when you learnt it, you will have forgotten a lot of it and lost a lot of that edge, which makes things even more difficult when you reach the exam. Finally, revising regularly is useful because it proves to yourself that you remember the information and you can bring it out whenever you want, and particularly bring it out for that exam.
Because when you learn it, sure, you know it, hopefully you know it, you've understood the information, but the way to know that you know it is to revise the information regularly. The final major trap that I'm going to talk about is thinking that you have more time later. I realized this partway through my final year of high school, and after I realized it, I tried to actively avoid this trap. And the way I realized it was because I would often make the wrong choice of leaving my work for tomorrow or the day after because I thought I had free time, and constantly being whipped by that decision because some event would come up and I would end up being behind on my work. So after realizing that, what I did was whenever I had a free lunchtime, a free afternoon, and I had some homework or studying on my to-do list, I would just get it done then, even if I knew I might have some potential free time tomorrow or the day after. I highly recommend you guys do the same for two reasons. Firstly, social events. Your school might organize some social events spontaneously. Your friends might ask you to go out. So if you're just hanging out with them at the end of school, they might say, do you want to go here or whatever? And if you've completed your early work, it really frees you up for any potential unexpected events that might occur. And the second reason I recommend you guys do this is because it frees up your academic burden. You really don't know how much homework your teacher's going to set tomorrow. You don't know if they're going to spring a test on you that's in like 3 days. And if you're in uni, you don't really know how hefty tomorrow's lecture might be. So if you've completed the work now, then you're really prepared for anything that might happen tomorrow. If the content is really hard, if you're given a lot of homework, then we can deal with it because we've finished all that early work and we can take time to digest the content and complete the work. And if the work tomorrow is very easy, then even better, because then we can get through it more quickly, have more time to consolidate the information, or get ahead, or even just relax. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you didn't listen to those 3 traps and were like, bang, 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 those are all things that I do. But even so, it's good that you've recognized it and can improve upon it now for the future. My second week of uni has been quite busy. I went into uni Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I live relatively far from it, so it's been quite tiring, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've had dissections every week, and it's very different seeing and touching a lung and a heart in person rather than on those anatomy diagrams. Good luck with your studies, whether you're in high school or in uni or whatever level of education you're at. Leave any questions you have in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. You can try and improve upon them, which is, if you didn't listen to those, is very useful because, but it was just a subconscious, so